Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan McNeil. This is the Builder by Day podcast. Today, we're joined by Mark DeWolf, a seasoned expert in Halifax's culinary and wine scene. With over 20 years as a sommelier, Mark has not only co-founded the Halifax International Wine Festival, but also runs DeWolf Food and Wine Experiences, where he curates unique food and wine events from exclusive speakeasy-style dinners to international wine tours. Mark, thanks for being here.
Happy to be here.
Appreciate it. As I mentioned earlier, you had asked me kind of what the goal or what the vision was here, and you're the first person outside of my industry that I've chatted with, and that's the goal, man. I just want to have conversations with people.
I don't know. You're building houses, so I don't think I'm that far out of the industry because I got to think that a lot of people spend a lot of money and attention on their kitchen and dining rooms.
It's the number one room.
You know, so I just happen to be the guy focused on the entertaining side of the house, so I'm not that far out of the equation.
Excellent. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Mark?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you the Coles Notes version. I didn't anticipate. I don't think anybody anticipates going through high school and university thinking, "What are you going to do for a living? Drink wine." So I followed my dad's path. He was a PhD in economics. I was going down economics path, math for my degrees. And I come from a pretty educated family. My sister's a professor of biochemical engineering and a dean of sciences at Concordia. My brother is a very well-known designer. And then I just said, fuck it. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I definitely knew I didn't want to do economics. So I landed in this kind of restaurant industry, got to be as best as I could. And then from there, I just build little businesses around wine. And so I'm as much, I got a passion for the liquid, but I think I have a bit of a passion for the business side of the wine business.
Of course, I would say so. Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
So how long have you been in the wine business? Let's say?
Yeah. So I guess the turning point was around 2004 when I left restaurants, and I pitched an idea at that time to say, hey, to the NSLC, you should have a magazine.
Okay.
And then they took my pitch, made a RFP out of it. Somehow I didn't win the RFP, which was my own pitch, as tends to happen, right? So pretty much a copy and paste of what I wrote. I went to a big company, a transcontinental, but with the caveat of hire him. And then I just launched businesses starting around 2006. We started with something called Valley Wine Tours, where we took people down to the wineries down here. And then sold that to ambassadors in 2009. And I said, well, we'll sell the local, but I want to keep all my contact lists. So I built wine clubs and international tours. And then from there, it just keeps spinning along until I got all these events. Yeah.
Okay, so are you a one-man show, or you're a one-person show in your business? Or
pretty much a one-person show. We have a business partner on the event side. So those are kind of a little bigger than one person can do. So we'll have 3,000 people for a single day event coming up in 3 weeks. So.
Okay.
That side, and that's the side of where I see all the growth happening. The tour side is great, but we'll keep building these unique events. That's where I am kind of focusing my energy right now on is building how to draw people into downtown Halifax to have experiences around liquid or food or how to create exciting events that are approachable and accessible.
Sure. So the event coming up, we're referring to the Halifax Wine Festival?
Yeah. Halifax International Wine Fest. We launched it last year, so we just said, there was a hole in the market. The NSLC, for whatever reason, used to host wine festivals and spirit festivals, and I think they just have a different mentality these days, so they don't want to... they don't want to do all the periphery stuff, So you're getting people to drink wine, drink craft beer, drink craft spirits. That's all about building education and building energy and, like I said, education, but energy around an interest in those things so that people don't just drink Keith's and they want to spend a few extra bucks. And so for whatever reason, they decided to give up on these experiences, right?
Okay.
And so it left a hole in the market. We decided we'll approach them about filling that hole. And then so that led to the wine festival. Then said if that worked, let's do a spirit festival. That worked. Now we're going to launch a big Italian food and drink wine festival next year on the waterfront. And so that's how it just kind of evolves out of that.
So, Mark, the Halifax International Wine Festival is the dates and location for that?
Yeah. So it's November 30th at Pavilion 22 on the Halifax waterfront. So probably be sold out by the time this podcast comes out. So which is a good sign. We'll have a few thousand people going in the doors. So
is that what you get roughly?
But yeah, so we can max out at 2,800 people. Just that's building capacity, and so we're at 2,200 or 2,300 already in sales with 3 weeks to go. So one presumes we'll be sold out by the end of it. So so I think it's exciting for the city to bring back because it was the NSLC used to have upwards of 4,000 or 5,000 who come through a few days, and our goal is to get another 4,000 or 5,000 people. Enjoying responsibly, and and it's good for downtown.
So, what for someone that's never been to a wine festival like that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it looks like you walk in. There's about 250, about 35 different agencies and wineries showcasing their products. So about 250 wines. So it's a good opportunity for people that. Because who gets to drink that many different wines over the course of your other than people like myself, and we spit and take small samples when we get through that number of wines, but nobody gets that opportunity. So it's basically the opportunity is to try different things that you might not normally, and that's always the big thing with wine, right? But wine's for whatever reason intimidating, because it's all this mystery wrapped around it, right? People like you're supposed to go and we're supposed to go and you're supposed to say, it smells like cherries and strawberry jam and vanilla and when you don't necessarily say, oh my God, I don't smell that, right? The culture of wine over the centuries is built up that it's you as someone as perhaps a novice drinker gets very intimidated to say, I don't want to expose myself to this, right? And so what I want to do is expose people to different unique wines in a non-intimidating environment, because reality is it doesn't really matter all that stuff. Like that's just superfluous, you got to understand if you like it or you don't like it. Great if you understand just a little bit about it, but all that other crap that has been wrapped up in wine is just crap. Like it's kind of part of the culture of wine to make people feel intimidated, and so that they feel somewhat powerless, and they buy on dollar or on reputation, and rather than their own palate sometimes. So I just want to give people an environment to go around, taste a bunch of different wines, enjoy those different wines. Then make your own decision what you liked, and go from there and go buy some wine. So
the concept makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's like and it's just demystifying the whole thing. That's the key. Is that for me, is wine is just part of daily life. I mean, just keep it to a couple glasses of daily life, not a couple bottles in daily life. That's another issue. That's a problem. But if you go back, looking back at culture, historic culture, like. In old world France, Italy, people didn't really traditionally analyze wine like we do. We think, and probably because we're North Americans, we think we have to think about wine because it's not historically natural to us. In the old world, where it's part of the environment, people didn't think that much. They just had the wine from where they were living, had the food, drink it, enjoy it, goes with food, done. It's just part of normal life, and I'd like to try to help people get back to that idea that it's nothing to be scared of. It's nothing to be elitist about, like what's elitist about wine? It makes no sense. It's just fermented grape juice.
I agree.
So
I agree, but you're right. That definitely is a real thing, right?
It is. And I think it was accentuated in the 80s and 90s. It was almost like wine became golf in a way, right? So in the 80s and 90s, you had to play golf. And you had to drink wine, right? Sure. And if you didn't shoot under 90 in golf or in the 80s, and you didn't know a few things about wine. You basically were, you're not seen as part of the in club, right?
Sure.
Or part in the corporate world, like I saw it all the time, corporate world. You had, if you didn't know a little bit about wine, you were just somewhat discarded, or at least, you weren't as within that cool group.
Yeah, sure. I've seen it firsthand. It's intimidating.
Yeah.
I've watched it at the table at a restaurant where I can tell somebody's ordering some wine and they're just, it's almost like they are careful with what they order because they feel like they're being judged on it.
Exactly, right. So they end up invariably going back to the whatever they are familiar with, right? And wine should be enjoyable. Whatever, if it's wine, it's beer, it's spirits, whatever. I mean, we're doing this not because we need to.
Sure.
It's there for, well, let's be honest. Like it's a little bit of the buzz. I mean, honestly, if some guy 9,000 years ago didn't find a bowl of grapes that had been sitting out for two weeks, drank a little bit, get a little buzz, probably looked at his wife and said, "Wow, you look amazing tonight." We wouldn't be drinking this stuff, right? So it's not about some intellectual thing, or it's one. It gives us a nice buzz, makes us happy, and if you can get to the point where you get a little bit of intellectual interest because they are unique and different, then that's great.
Do you think non-wine drinkers would notice or appreciate the difference between an inexpensive wine and a very expensive wine?
It depends. Probably not. I mean, it depends on the wine, but because that's what, for me, the fascinating thing about the wine business is that it is a wine business, and it's actually slightly different than most commodities. Most commodities, we go, input cost is this. A relatively standard multiplier, right? You say, okay, it cost me $3 to make that widget. I'm going to retail it for $9.95, right? Sure. Wine, at a certain level, particularly at the more expensive level, doesn't work through the same multiplier system. So wine works through supply and demand, right? So that you have certain wines that cost $1,000 a bottle. It does, and other good wines that cost $30 a bottle. The one that costs $1,000 does not cost 30 times as much to make.
Of course not.
Right? You can only spend so much. You can spend. I think I had a friend that was a master of wine. Basically said the most you could ever spend if you got the best consultant, the best oak, the grapes in the best vineyards, about $45. That's the most you could ever hope to dream to make. So if a wine costs $2,000 a bottle, that is all supply and demand economics. So there's no ration. So there's some great wines for $18.99 that I think are just as good as stuff that is $189.99 because you got supply and demand. Some people just the $18.99 and just has good grapes because they live in a place that's it's Chile or South Africa where they have good sun, good climate, and they have cheap dollars, right? Mm-hmm. So nobody actually is not unsexy as it is to think about. There's a lot more interesting economics at play to the wine world. Why wine costs something? It's not all just better grapes equal better wine, more expensive wine. There's the supply and demand stuff I mentioned, but also like just basic macroeconomics, like dollar valuations,
right?
Labor costs, all these other things that allow somebody in certain place like I said, I'll go back Chile, Argentina. Where the cost of labor is lower, the cost of land is lower, the cost of the dollar is weaker. Well, I can make an amazing wine for $30.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's but people don't think about that, and nobody's telling you as you walk into a wine store, here's all these other variables. No, people just see 50, 30, 60 and assume, and that's unfortunately not not an accurate reflection of
Yeah,
wine.
so something like a wine festival is a good place for you to go.
Of course,
figure that
because
out.
you can then figure out that, wow, my God, I really love that $17.99 wine, and it's so good. And a wine festival is a great way to experiment, try something you didn't know, and try something, and you may just figure out, there's some great values out there, and they exist.
Yeah, excellent. You've been in many places and traveled the world, and we can talk about some of that coming up. But is there anything sort of unique or special in Halifax's food and wine market?
Well, I think we have a pretty diverse and robust food and wine scene. I think it's probably gone gangbusters in the last 5 years since we've seen the explosion on the waterfront. You know, I think obviously, I think this local trend has been very good for the local wine community, and we do have good local wines. I think I wouldn't have said that as demonstratively 20 years ago when our wine industry was, let's say, variable at best. Okay. But now I think the exciting thing about living here is that we've got good local ingredients, good local restaurants, and good local wineries and breweries, you know, that are producing pretty high class, and in some cases world class, not all the time, but in the case of Nova Scotia wineries, they make pretty freaking good sparkling wine, and that is on par with anywhere in the world. Not everything is, but that's okay. And the rest of the world doesn't make every style either.
That's right.
You know, so we keep, I think a lot of times when people talk about Nova Scotia wine and they go, oh, I don't like Nova Scotia wine. Well, no, you probably don't like 70% of Nova Scotia wine, but I guarantee you there's 30% that's really good. And if I said someone else, I'll take you to parts of France where they only make white wines. Well, they do it very well. They don't care. They're not trying to make those other styles that their climate doesn't do well with. So we shouldn't put that same criticism on our local wineries. Celebrate what they freaking do good. Buy what they do good. And don't expect them to make big, full-bodied red wine because they can't. And if you buy one thinking you're going to get a good wine, well, you're crazy.
What? Yeah, that's a good point. And that makes perfect sense. I've never heard it explained that way, but that's a very good way of putting it. And can you explain, maybe this isn't a question you can answer in short form, but why can't we make in Nova Scotia big, full-bodied red wine?
We just don't. Have you felt
the grapes?
The temperature outside today?
Okay. It's the climate? It's the
climate. We don't want, grapes to make full-bodied red wines, you need sugar in your grapes. And to get sugar in your grapes, you need to ripen them more. And so you need a certain amount of heat units to get there. We just simply do not get the heat units to get there. But what we do is have a very long, cool growing season. So it means we can make lighter styles of red wine and white wines because we have a very elongated season. So we don't get big sugar, but we still can get ripe flavors in the skins. And that's why Las Vegas is never going to be a great wine producing region. They have ample sunshine, but the thing is their sugar, they'll grow the grapes, the sugars would go like this, but flavors need more time. So what we have is perfect for flavor ripeness, just not perfect for getting sugar. So we'll never make the big full-bodied red wines because you need sugar to convert to alcohol, which gives you that sense of body and weight. But we can do lighter style reds, fresh whites, and sparkling wines. Okay, great. So it's all climate.
That's interesting. With the International Wine Show here in Halifax, what would be, I'm curious as to the demographic. Would that be a pretty even mix of men and women, or would that be more women than men?
No, slightly more women than men. So I would say it's probably in around a 60-40 split. Okay. Our demographic tends to be probably the 35 to 55, 60-year-old consumer tends to be of moderate to medium plus income. I mean, I personally don't. Some wine shows focus on the highest income earners. In my whole business life, even though I'm a pretty good accomplished somm and got some good score, marks and accolades and all that, I don't really care about the 0.5%. That's a real hard business to be in to one, get them out. One, you're setting it. It's like probably for you, if you only made $3 million homes, you know the client that buys $3 million homes, and that client is super particular, super needy, and while you can do good things,
well, there aren't many of them either.
Right. There's not. I'd rather focus on the many, and I'd rather focus on a consumer that comes in with an open mind. I'm not and I'm just not pretentious. I can talk about the talk with anybody on wine at any level of wine. Just isn't me, right? So I have to be honest to myself. So the same with my tours, like, they're pretty reasonable. Like, I take people to a Tuscany or wherever, and it's $4,000. Like, I could go after the $30,000 a week customer for $50,000 a week customer, but just isn't who I am in my body. I just feel like I want to be casual. I want to just be open, and I don't care about drinking $500 bottles of wine all the time. I just want to find good, honest wine.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, do you want to talk about the tours a bit?
Sure.
Is this through your DeWolf experiences?
Yeah, that's through DeWolf experiences. So I've been running kind of international tours since like 2008 and 2009 in that range, and yeah, so I do these. What's the antithesis of the bus tour? No, there's nobody with a paddle.
Okay.
No, and I just try to bring like-minded people together in unique places around the world. So, I think we've done about 70 or 80 tours.
Oh wow, really?
A lot in Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, South Africa, South America, and I just try to showcase, the best of those places, but the best meaning not necessarily the most expensive. So I'm as happy to take someone to a restaurant in Tuscany where it's the grandma still cooking, than a Michelin white linen, right? Because this is the authentic experience, right? So I just want people to get authentically good experiences, a little bit of culture, not to see too many fermenters, like, go to too many wineries, because God knows I'd be bored to death if I did that every day. So we'll drink good wine, we'll go to some wineries, go to some great restaurants, get some cultural tours. I get historians to come in and do some walking tours. So try to get this idea that wine is part of lifestyle, while it's part of culture, and wine is part of history. So kind of make those, that's how I look at it.
That's interesting. So are these tours arranged that you all leave from the same place and travel together and you go to this place?
Yeah, I think most people have points these days. I just say, we're going to meet up in wherever it is, Florence Airport or Rome Airport. Okay. I'll pick you up. Okay. And then we take you on and take you for like 8 or 9 days of immersion into one. Try to usually do one region, so you're not traveling around all the time. It's not like you're packing. It's not one of these, I'm taking you to Rome and Milan and Florence and Venice, because and we're going to do that in 7 days, and basically you're going to live out of suitcase hopping. We can settle down and get you into a beautiful villa. Let you unpack.
Do you guys make all those arrangements? Like, do you?
I do it all. Yeah. So, yeah. I used to be the driver too, but I've given that up. That part I leave to the drivers in the country now. Okay. But I used to. I used to leave and cook dinner some night.
Okay. So these are what in our world, when we talk as home builders, when we do everything, we refer to as turnkey. So these turnkey...
Yeah, it's like, exactly. Basically, trips. I want people to turn off their mind, and I just set them up. And either I have scheduled tours, or I have curated tours, or I have, I'm taking people in a few months to northern Italy. And it's 5 couples out of Calgary they've just say, Mark, we want to go to this place. Can you set it up for us?
Okay.
And figure it out and do all the logistics and make your calls, because I know I work a lot on the international side of the sommeliers, like doing where I work with the governing global body of sommeliers called as their kind of content manager and editor. So I have these connections around the world. So I just call all my friends, say, you got some cool place, where should we go? And this is what I'm looking for. Cool. And then we build it around that.
Nice. Can you tell everybody, can you Explain for us laymen that don't use the term sommelier very often. Can you explain to folks what exactly that is?
Yeah. So sommelier is, in my mind, my job is someone that can communicate about wine and other beverages to the consumer. So historically, it traces back. It's the word traces back to the people that put supplies on animals.
Okay.
And we're in control of that. And then over time, that became the person that managed supplies at a chateau or at an estate. And over time, then it became the guy in the cellar managing the cellar and the wine for those estates. And so, but now as we got restaurants come out, it became a term for the people managing the wine in a restaurant. But for me, the modern context is someone that it doesn't have to be at a restaurant anymore. For me, it's about, some people would argue with me, it is about anybody that can relate the liquid in the glass to somebody else and explain it and do it in it. So for me, it's more than just serving a bottle of wine. It's what makes it important and special is, how do I relate the experience for you in a way that you understand?
Okay.
Right? So whether you're a novice drinker or the guy, the person that's been drinking wine, knows a lot for 30 years, I adjust how I talk to you. It's not about me just showing my skill, my knowledge off. It's a great psalm is, how do I relate what's in the glass so in a language and in a way that makes sense to the other person. So anybody that can do that, in my mind, is a psalm.
And is it something for which you receive formal training or accreditation?
Yeah. So I taught it for about 19 years, of course. So it takes people usually about 2 years to complete.
Okay.
240 hours of classroom work, plus a few hours of staging and working with other psalms. So it's totally serious, and it's we get the full gamut of people that have taken these classes. So sometimes it's people like me that were in the restaurant business, just trying to be the best at what they can do, and then we get a lot of people now that were wine lovers who are near the end of their working careers. Maybe they just retired. They have time, they have the money, they want to kind of take it and see what they can do with knowledge that they're not actually going to practice it. But it's a very humbling course because not everybody has all the skills. So you have to be able to go and do my thing and smell it and say, oh, this is this from here and there, and why, what food does it go with? But there are tens of thousands of grape varietals, wine regions, all have different laws. So you also have to be able to write tests and have a huge volume, encyclopedia really of knowledge. It's insane. I mean, to know all the wineries all around the world. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of wineries. And then be able to articulate essays too, like a university degree, and a university course where you have to not only have a lot of knowledge, but then be able to put it down on paper and write a theory. So we have the people that had graduated, came back as brain surgeons or lawyers, often are pretty good at that side of it, but they might not.
Brain surgeons are pretty smart, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard. But I always think back because I have had a brain surgeon and someone that graduated magna cum laude Harvard Law School, right? But they didn't get A's in sommelier class because, yes, they could articulate an essay. They could write a test, but if they couldn't do this part.
Sure.
Right? And then on the other side, we've had great people in the restaurant business that maybe are very used to doing this part and talking about food and that side, but maybe because they haven't had a formal education, like they haven't gone through a university degree or a master's level degree, that piece of being able to articulate an essay and coming up with argument and rationalizing that, they fall there. So it's a very small window of people that do super successfully at this. Like I think we had, in the 19 years I did it, maybe 3 people with honors, like 85% average or better in all the modules. And when you get to the highest levels, which are like Master Somm, I'm not, or Master of Wine, pass rates can be as low as like 7% to get through these courses, because it is humbling. As a field of study, it is humbling how much information, how much detail is required.
That's interesting. So would you, for the we'll use the term somm. You're abbreviating sommelier.
Yeah, it's just a lot easier to say.
I'm going to do that
somm.
from now on, right?
Yeah,
Instead
it's
of
just a
juicy
whole lot
sommelier.
easier. Yeah,
like
for
I'm doing
me
a
too.
Stand-up skit. So these master somms, right?
Yeah.
First of all, is there any historically speaking, are there any men or women who are known for being like the Tiger Woods of sommeliers?
Yep. There's 5. There's only 5 people, I would say, in the history over all time that have become what's called a master sommelier and a master of wine. So a master sommelier, a little more focused on the service, the tasting component. There's currently, I think, about 300 people that have ever graduated with that title in 40 years. And Master of Wine, which is a little more on the theory side of wine, there's about maybe 400 that have over, or 500 over 50 years that have graduated. There's 5 people that in the history that have acquired both. So there's only 5, and one of them, this guy named Gerard Basset, who I'm actually super lucky. I mean, I was emailing back and forth with his wife earlier today. He passed away in 2019, but he was the only one that ever to get a Master of Wine, Master Sommelier, and the title of Best Sommelier of the World, which it was through our organization that I work for a bit part-time, is we host these massive sommelier contests. And the last one I was at in Paris, 2023, if you can imagine doing all the stuff as a somm and part of it, like, I'm smelling this one, and this is Cabernet Franc from this vineyard in this region of this country, and maybe it's this made in this year. Imagine we had 5,000 people in a stadium in Paris watching the last 3 competitors up there going, doing all this stuff, like having to do all these skill things, and then up there smelling and having to do this in front of 5,000 people saying, that's that wine from that place and that thing. So this Gerard Basset, he's kind of, I would say, the legend of sommeliers who actually won that title and those other 2 distincts. So he would be, I guess I may use the Ben Hogan, I guess, because
sure.
But right now, I guess the Tiger Woods is might be like this guy Raymond Thompson's that I just interviewed last week, who is the current best sommelier of the world from Latvia, of all places.
Really? So is that, what would you say that, I mean, obviously those folks have some kind of a gift, right? I mean, you can't learn that. You can't learn that. You're like, no, you can't learn to be Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods. No,
you have to inherently have that skill. But
I mean, obviously you can learn some of it, of course.
Yeah, exactly. You inherently have that ability to smell and taste and things like that. But Tiger Woods, if he didn't practice all the time as a kid, well, he probably would shoot in the 70s or 80s, but he wouldn't have been necessarily winning Masters all the time, right? So
they hone their skills.
The same way, you have to have inherent intelligence, and because it's a volume of knowledge that you have to be able to acquire, inherent skills, but you can't just do it naturally. Like, you need to be like Tiger Woods, training, and these guys train for like 2 to 3 years when they go into these competitions, and they're often using sports psychologists. Wow. Because I mean, you can imagine it's just like anything in any career. If you win a best of your profession, I mean, the monetary benefit is significant.
Of course.
You know, and I guess bragging rights too. I'm just too scared to. I would never have. My ex-wife would never. She jokingly would never have let me invest the money too to get to that point because it was expensive to train like that.
Sure.
You know, and these masters of wine can spend $100,000 to get that designation. Easily.
Wow, really? Wow,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
So, yeah, it's a fascinating world that we don't see too much on it here, but it's.
Can you do that? Generally speaking, can you smell wine and get a sense of? Not even. I'm not talking about what street.
Yeah.
The vineyard was on.
Yeah.
Like the country.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully, but again, it's like depends on how much I've been doing it. Like, so when I was training to become a somm, I was hyper focused on studying and smelling and tasting and going back and making sure I could get the clues, right? You know, I was like teaching a class a couple days ago in Fox Harbor, and we were smelling, saying, okay, when I see this Chilean cab, I'm looking for tomato smell like tomato. If I smell tomato vine and these wine, for me, it's like these wine gums, this candy. If I smell those two things, I know I'm going to Chile, and I know I'm going to either probably Cabernet, and then I'll taste it, and if it has the tannin, I know it's Cabernet. So you go through practicing these telltales of I know this varietal, this style of wine, this place has these telltale aromas and flavors, and then you keep going back and practicing, and then eventually when you get into these competitions or tests, that wine comes up, then you go, okay, I know it's that. But now, you know, I've had history, so like it's on my side, but I don't train like I'm training for a competition, right? So
Sure.
I'm more often than not sitting down with my partner and having a glass of wine, and I only think so much about it.
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So which I'm very happy not to have to do that anymore.
Yeah, I guess if you come back to your golf analogy, that would be sort of that extra effort would be like constantly working on your short game.
Yeah.
Right. So if you stop working on that and you go away and you just start playing golf once a week on the weekend, you're still going to hit the ball pretty well, but you're not going to get up and down.
Right.
You're not going to make those putts.
Right. So you take your go from your scratch golfer to your +8.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Because
but if you yourself then dedicate it and want to get back to being a scratch, you'd have to focus on those finite things.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just like anything else. You know.
Yeah.
It's just like I mean, people have to work at this to do that now.
No, most people wouldn't think there was that much. That's interesting. I find that really interesting.
Oh yeah, and I think that's the unique thing about this wine. Most people don't go into this industry thinking, like I said before, I'm going to be a sommelier, or a somm. Nobody thinks that, but it's the passion for the product that takes you down that road. And when you get really good, you generally speaking not only have talent, but you're very passionate. So you're happily applying an hour a day to studying the books or going to tastings and trying different wines. So it's just it's a subject that grabs you, and I think a lot of people, myself included, probably could have gone down completely different paths, but found the way in life that it's never going to make me. I'm never going to buy the $3 million home. But because it isn't that level of income to be made from this industry, but I'm pretty happy about it.
Yeah, good.
Right? So, it's a good way to enjoy life.
Well, absolutely. If you're doing what you enjoy and you're good at it, and
yeah, the money comes. It just you're not going to get it. It's not like a surgeon money, though. Sure. Unfortunately,
you're not a wine surgeon.
No, there's no wine surgeon. Damn it! I was hoping to find the route to get a few $600,000 income a year on smelling and tasting and writing about wine.
Well, the person
just
that
hasn't happened.
Well, the guy or men or women who can grab a glass and smell it and tell you what country and regions, but that better be worth some money. I hope that skill is paying them $500,000.
Yeah, I think they
amazing.
I think it's amazing. I doubt very many of them are making $500,000 a year, but I mean, but there are good jobs out there. There's good jobs, particularly in bigger countries like U.S. and England and France, where you're managing wine for either for big retailers or for restaurant groups, and yeah, they do okay.
Any trends here locally when it comes to the wine business? Things that are other things that have happened recently or happening now, or
well, the industry. I mean, it's interesting to see like what's going on with the NSLC. They seem to be getting a little more, like I mentioned before, less about the periphery. So they seem to be more. So the exciting things are coming out of the private systems like Bishop Cellar and Harvest and Westside. Some of the private retailers. That's where the exciting wines seem to be coming from, and then it's locally, the local wines. I think we're starting to hit our stride and qualitatively. So I think that's exciting. Whether we can translate that into industry, like true industry, right? We have some great wineries making great products that are still, but I still think of us slightly as a tourism-based wine industry. We've yet to get over that hurdle to become a wine industry where it's not just reliant on tourism, where we can eventually do exporting. We'll see a real growth in it. It's still a little plateaued. So I think that's the next step, and whether I think that's going to come from eventually. It probably will happen where we have somebody outwardly invest in Nova Scotia and not say, I'm going to buy 8 acres or a few hectares somewhere to build a winery. Someone's going to come in and buy 100 hectares, transition that into vineyard land, and transform, bring in more economies of scale and efficiencies, and take that's probably the challenge right now, is we have too many small growers. And just to make you need one tractor for 10 acres, but you can probably use that one tractor for 100 too. Sure. So it's better not to have 10 times 10 with all the inefficiencies that brings. Sure. It's better to have a few 100s that will bring down the input cost, and bring down the input cost means more profits, and boom, 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 boom. Suddenly you have, or you more abilities to export and do a thing, grow businesses. So I think that's where we have to get to. So hopefully government doesn't just support the model that we have now, but is forward thinking enough to support the model that we should be wanting if we want to have true industry.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The idea, I've heard folks, as a home builder, of course, and somebody that has dealt a lot with real estate development and built homes outside the city. And so you often hear people talk about, wouldn't it be great to someday retire and have your own little vineyard and your own. It's a very romantic idea.
Yes, I think if you have a decent sized wealth, and you're looking for a slightly smaller,
right. But it's going to be a lot of work, and it's probably not going to.
Yeah, if you want to be slightly less wealthy than you started,
exactly. Yeah,
you go for it.
Sure, exactly. Exactly. Right. That's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah, it's a very romantic idea, but it's kind of like it's just something that probably will be just something you spend money on rather than make money doing.
Unless you're really business centric about it. If you go into it with the vision that you're going to build something because you like the romantic nature of having a small winery and people come by and chatting about wine. Yeah, well, as long as you have a big nest egg, so you can live on a smaller one later,
sure.
Go for it. But if you actually want to say, I want to be in the wine business, most people that have built up the income, the net worth to be able to start wineries, usually I would say to them, don't forget you were business people first. Use your business mind.
Right.
Don't do anything based on romance in that can affect your wealth. Go in with a very pragmatic business plan, and not everybody does.
No, I wouldn't imagine so. I've seen a similar thing in the renovation world. People there are television networks dedicated to renovating and flipping houses, and it looks really cool on TV. Right?
Yeah,
and it looks
and it looks
the before and afters and all of the great stuff in between. But it's it's like it's for most people, if they've never done it, it'll be the most stressful thing they've ever
because
done.
I'm sure there's yelling at, oh my God, I need the flooring guy. You have to be here today, like I said, not next week. Like
they quickly do the math. Oh, we're going to buy it for 300,000. We're going to spend 50. We're going to sell it for 425, and we're going to pay our realtor. And we're still going to make a few bucks. Then they realize they bought it for 3. They spent 100. They sold it for 420. They barely covered their real estate.
And the real estate agent made the 20 grand on the deal, not you.
That's right. That's right. And then the realtor's going, that's great. You should do that again.
Yeah. So I think I take a very pragmatic role to business too. I'm a capital. I like low investment businesses. So what I do is, luckily enough, I haven't had to invest huge amounts of money to do it.
That's good. You're there's an abbreviation here. I don't want to say it, but the ASI, the ASI?
Yeah, so that's the Association de la Sommelier International. So that's kind of the governing body of sommeliers for the world. So I am there. I was their director of marketing, but now I'm their content manager and editor. So I produce like magazines for them, press releases, speeches, all that. So that affords me in life pretty cool. All these MWs and MSs, Master Somms I was talking about, get to interview them. I get to chat with great chefs from around the world. So for me, it's a great intellectual release to be able to produce that stuff, because I have to be thinking at a pretty high, for this world, I have to be thinking at a pretty high level about what I'm talking about. So for me, it's that piece is my intellectual release, where I get to say, okay, where the wine festival is very much about everybody and let's just enjoyment of the wine. At this level, I'm speaking only to top somms, and by publications and read by the world. It's read by those top chefs, those top somms. So it's my kind of intellectual outlet to really dive in deep into this wine industry. And we've done last issue on artificial intelligence in the wine our industry, and talking.
Oh, really?
Or the one before. Because there's a lot of artificial intelligence being used by the wineries. There's all sorts of tools out there where they're using cameras and sensors in vineyards, and then to understand, fungal diseases, what's happening with fungal disease or heat units, and then using predictive analysis to say, AI to say what we should do or how we should manage. Or in our field, there's lots of platforms getting built where I don't want to say they want to take over take from some ways, but they're trying to create predictive analysis so that if you say, oh, I know I like this and that, but can't really articulate very well. But using platforms using AI to grab any information they can out of you in terms of what you do like, and then be able to put it through artificial intelligence so that you can come back and they say, well, you like this. I understand you now, so you will like this wine, and feed in there. Or we were talking to a company called Tastery that they're using they're using all this kind of consumer data with their understanding of wine data, melding the two so that wineries can say, when I'm making a winemaking decision, so let's trying to make this Cabernet Franc we're having, they go, well, the consumer data set of where you're selling suggests to me that you should possibly have this age in oak for this amount of time. So going to this kind of minutia of understanding of how a wine is made and who's buying these wines, and then being able to give that information and using AI to tell the winery, you might want to do this and this and this and this and this, or you're going to ferment it this way and do that. So it's scary yet interesting stuff.
AI is scary.
It is scary, and that's my because I think it's one of the things about wine is we might not you all like the same wine. There's some wines I think is better than others, but somebody will disagree with me and they'll say, no, I like that wine that you don't like, and And so I think the scary thing, that's what I think is exciting about the wine industry, that every bottle isn't the same.
Right.
But I have this kind of underlying fear, if we use AI to tell us based on consumer to what we should want, or if we have too many wines relying on that, are we possibly not going back to homogeneous wine production and that for me is scary, where I don't want my Cabernet Franc from Nova Scotia to taste like some wine from Italy and Chile just because customer analysis, and all this AI stuff says, oh, that's what it should taste like, right?
Yeah,
you
could start. I see what you mean. You could start making wines from different parts of the world taste like they're from other parts of the world.
Totally, and it just becomes commercialized wine, and that's the thing about wine is that. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't work out. Some you have bad years. That's the exciting thing about wine is that it's not predictable.
Yeah,
and you never know what's exactly going to be in that glass.
Yeah,
and that's the cool thing.
That's good. Does wine necessarily get better with age?
Nope. 99.9% of wine is made for immediate consumption.
Okay.
You have to have certain characteristics for it to age well. So particularly for red wines, it's a certain amount of tannins. A lot of different combinations have to work well for it to age well. So yeah, there's a certain 1% of the wines that do age are meant for aging and do benefit from aging. But 99% of what you pick up, you're meant to drink it in the first year or two.
Okay.
Yeah, so no. I think that's another thing people think. Oh, you can't just throw anything in the basement and think it's going to be better.
I think that's definitely a common misconception.
Yes, exactly.
Us unsophisticated wine
do
drinkers.
not put your apothic red through a cellaring program. It's they want you to drink it right now. So.
Do they indicate that? Do the wine producers? Is it indicated or not?
No. I think that's one of I think that's one of these great failures of the wine industry is we don't do a great job of telling consumers information.
Right.
And I think and we don't tell anything we use it's hard, right? You go I love these guys, Benjamin Bridge, but you look at this wine, Wild Rock, you don't know. I see the alcohol percentage. I know it's Cabernet Franc. That's all. You know hardly anything about it. We have no labeling laws, very slack labeling laws. And think about what we have to put on a food label. Right. To the nth degree, right? What's in
all
there?
the ingredients, expiry dates,
exactly, all that. We don't do any of that. And certain places you should be shocked. I think how many additives you can add to wine.
Really?
Right? We all think it's just grapes. No, not necessarily. Especially obviously in high quality wine. They're trying not. That's the purpose, but. And mass consumer wines, you might be surprised what they add in to your favorite wine you got on the grocery store, on the liquor store.
And no indication of what's in there on the label. You wouldn't know, right?
No, and you don't know. Yeah. And so that's changing. Europe's just introducing new labeling standard laws that you have to start identifying this stuff, and so hopefully that'll come to North America too. And
I'm surprised here in this country we don't have to do that. We got to label shit out of everything.
Yes, exactly. It makes zero. How does the alcohol industry get away with it, right?
Yeah, remember back, if I'm not mistaken, back in the tail end of COVID, you couldn't find it was Tylenol or something was not on the shelves. You couldn't find them anywhere. And it's because that they didn't have the French labeling on the packaging. That's how stringent we are with labeling in this country.
We still in certain provinces are very stringent on the French side of the equation. So we'll still insist on that you have the French back label or the bilingualism, but whether or not you add sulfur to your wine or not, you don't have to necessarily do. Or there's all sorts of other things in some of the mass-produced wine of coloring agents and all these things, stabilizers, all these other things that get added in that, we don't care about for whatever reason.
Do you think the lack of information on the labeling is done purposely to back to what we talked about earlier, sort of that vagueness and
Yes,
that
of course. That's the
unknownness of
romance.
wine?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. I think there is still a certain amount of appeal for wine to not give all the information, right?
Sure.
So if I don't give you all the info, I'm still, as a wine producer, still in the power. So it's that kind of idea that if I only want to give you so much info, I still don't want to give it to you all, because I'm going to guard those secrets and challenge you to understand that's because so I can charge $50 for that bottle of wine. I mean, it's obviously not. It's not like nefarious or like individual wine, but I think it's culturally that idea is that we don't want to give too much away, because if we do, we don't want everybody to know everything, because that still means the power of knowledge is on our side,
Right.
not their side,
Sure.
right? And we can, we can, of course, that's worth $50.
Yeah,
but you
sure.
wouldn't be able to question it, right?
Right. Does red wine always come in a dark colored bottle?
Well, yeah. I mean, dark color bottles are better for light.
Okay.
So if we
Is that the reason for it?
Yeah. So
Okay.
we could protects the liquid from light. I mean, I'll be controversial and say I think longer term we have to question whether we need to drink out of bottles. There's no, if we think back of it, there's no absolute logic. Like, we're so used, and people used to get all upset about.
You mean drink wine from the bottle?
Not drink wine from the bottle, but that the wine is packaged in a bottle, right?
Oh, okay.
20 years ago, people were freaked out about good wine being under a screw
Sure.
cap, right? They're like, I can't drink that. It has to be under a cork. Why?
Right. Yeah.
Right? And I actually think I'll be controversial and say, what? I take this wine, put it in like a box, it's not going to taste any different.
Sure.
Right? So I think, I hope there's an evolution comes where we decide we don't need bottles, and we don't need really heavy bottles, because probably the biggest negative impact one of the biggest negative impacts of the wine industry is carbon emissions from transportation. So the fact, sending container loads of super heavy bottles from France and Italy across an ocean, and then trucks and all the things you have to get it to a store, that's our biggest environmental impact of our industry, is that.
Right.
And glass, as much as it's recyclable, recycling rates of glass bottles are far less than some other things. So like cans or the cardboard boxes that can be broken down. So unfortunately, we talk about recycling bottles, but a lot of bottles do not get recycled.
Sure.
And so I'd like to see a day where we're willing to experiment and have the same wine in a box, some other container that's more environmentally friendly. It's not gonna. We're all drinking it. 99% of the time we're drinking in the next 6 months or a year. Or actually, the actual fact is most wine is drunk within 48 hours of buying it.
Is that right?
So we don't need it in a bottle like this. We don't need it in most of them. And certain wines will benefit from cork because of the micro-oxygen, a little bit of oxygen helps evolve the wine. But most of us are drinking it within 48 hours. So you don't need it.
Okay. So and the bottle is the bottle a significant cost in the big package as well? Would that help lower costs overall?
Yeah, so I think an average bottle costs about $1. I'm not in the side, but about $1.50.
Okay.
So then you throw on a label, that's probably another 10 or 15 cents. You throw in a cork for another quarter. Sometimes you're looking at $1.82, and then if you're using heavy bottles, $2.50 for your package. And then think about that in a multiplier effect, because if you're coming sending that $2.50 going from let's say Italy to Nova Scotia, all the taxations and multipliers, that $2.50 is now $9 just in the bottle. Right. So I think, which makes it very scary to think if you're buying that $13.99 bottle of wine at the NSLC. and at least 9 or 10 of that is gone to that.
The bottle. Yeah.
Right? A certain amount's going to marketing. How much is actually going to the liquid? Like we're talking nickels or dimes that are actually the result of the liquid. So yeah, scary. Like, so if we could get more efficient, that's, like if we could all agree, drink some good wine out of 3-liter boxes, we'd reduce we'd be spending less too.
Yeah, you just got to get people on board.
Yeah, exactly. It just was going to take time. It's going to take a couple of wineries that have the means and ability to change the mindset, right? And the willingness to stick there, go out there and be the first, because right now boxes are left to the pretty plonky wine, like not great wine. It's going to take a good producer
that already has a reputation for good
already
wine.
has a reputation for good wine to say, okay, yes, you know what? I'm going to step in here. Yeah, my box wine is not going to be, if Peller or Jackson Triggs are $46, I'm going to be 51 because I have better liquid. 55, 3. But I'm going to do it and help try to convert the consumers and say, okay, yeah, oh, geez, I know that winery makes really good wine in a bottle. I'd be willing to get it in a box. That's hopefully that's that's what we need. We need a couple, but it takes a brave CEO of one of those companies to jump into a market that is historically said it's for the bottom feeders, right? The not quality, to be that quality producer. And actually good segue. I forgot about this. This is Benjamin Bridge, which I consider local, considered to be an amazing producer, right? World-class producer. This wine itself, I forgot, just went in a box.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. So they're just releasing boxes of this. So that's we need people like that to say, we're going to do that.
It'll be interesting to see how it goes, I guess. How sales go on that front.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully they can sell through a few boxes and that's it. Like that's all retailers care about, right?
Yeah,
so,
of course.
So it's got
to make business sense.
Got to make business sense. So hopefully consumers will support that and make it viable.
Yeah. Anything else, Mark, that we covered a lot there. We get into some specifics, and you're breaking it down well for a guy that's not well versed in the wine world. And I know I'm not alone. All these people pretend they know a lot about it.
Yeah, no. I think that's it.
I have no problem.
I think the end of the day
know.
is, man, just like, anybody listening, don't be scared about freaking wine. Talk to some good people. Be willing to experiment. Sometimes you're gonna experiment and maybe not get the wine, but I mean that's the fun of it. So too much intimidation has been built up around this industry. It's not good for the industry. It will collapse the industry in a way if we can't get out of our own way and trying to create, and making wine too expensive and too elitist. This is for all you producers out there watching and listening. We need people to be able to come into the market. And if we keep talking at this level and putting wines at $50 and $60 and $70 out of the reach of most people, guess what we're going to have? A lot of people drinking, what's that, the RTDs and beer and and non-alcohol other things. It's in our interest to make wine accessible.
And food's a big part of wine too, right? Like
of course,
it's huge, right? It's
huge. Like, I mean, I think that's what wine is supposed to be. It's a dinner table thing. You enjoy it over a meal, and that's what it's always used to be. And so again, it doesn't have to be to have good food and wine experiences. Doesn't have to be at a hugely expensive restaurant downtown. It can be just a nice wine like this with simple pasta at home. Whatever you're making, and it doesn't have to be complicated to be good.
There's, like they say, there's no accounting for taste, right?
Right.
So there would be people out there that I'm sure that they love their $18.99 bottle of wine, and they probably would prefer it over any number of $50 or $60 or $80 bottles.
So if you love it, keep drinking it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks, Mark. I appreciate that.
Cheers.
Cheers.